Hello, I'm Shelley Rothus, and I'm a different kind of victim. Forgive me if my video isn't all that good. This is my first time using this type of video, which is on my computer, so I'm going to try my hardest. So, I am Shelley Rothus, and I'm a different kind of victim. My goal for my presentation is based upon why abuse is cultural within our society. I call it domestic violence culture now, is what I want to change it to, and hope that it does spread worldwide, and hopefully within the United States at least. Domestic violence culture is a practice that we've been taught throughout our life, even before we were here. This has been going on for centuries. Abuse is a huge problem within our society, and we really don't realize how much each and every single one of us enables abuse to continue. We're always saying, well, why don't they do this? They should have done this. Why doesn't this stop? Well, my goal is to teach why abuse continues and why it gets worse. My goal is to help people understand and realize that, so they can answer the question themselves and hopefully realize what part they play in enabling abuse to continue and get worse within our society. I call myself a different kind of victim because I do want to make changes for all victims and survivors of domestic violence, in hopes that I can help them prevent or even deal with abuse situations that have happened to them or will happen to them in the future. I have met many other domestic violent victims and survivors who have gone through many things that I myself have gone through that are too fearful to express that. I myself made a promise to these people that I will teach about this because, like them, I want things to change, not only for myself, but for others as a whole, for our society. So I hope you enjoy my presentation based upon my teachings of domestic violence culture. Okay, next up, I'm going to be talking about the difference between gangs and bullying. Okay, let's start off with bullying. It's very important to understand the differences. So, bullying can be verbal, physical, and mental abuse. All of it is abuse. One of the main problems that we're finally coming through with is understanding that verbal abuse can actually even be worse than physical abuse. Luckily, that's coming out more. Although it still needs to be worked on, and hopefully it will come out more to have others understand it that way. Socially as a whole, we will see them as equal. So bullying. When we think of bullying, we think of kids in the schoolyard pointing out at somebody saying, "Look at that fatty! Ah!" That's what we think of. That's verbal abuse. Yes, we start off young. We've all abused others. It's a choice. That is what I always teach. Just like that kid yelling out, "Ah! Look at that fatty!" So, how do most people handle that? When we are kids, even, that I disagree with. We'll say, "Well, they're just jealous of you." No, that's putting it onto the person who's suffering, the victim. Should be taught that that's their choice to do it. They're the wrong ones. They should take responsibility for that behavior. You shouldn't have to deal with that. It's that person who should be punished, not the person it is happening to. And that is one way that our culture has been taught, and how people, even when they get older, it gets accepted and tolerated. So bullying can be somebody just, pushing you, saying you jerk, or mental, you're so stupid. All that can affect somebody. So what's the difference between that and gangs? Gangs, yes, they participate with the bullying, but they also do things that can harm somebody's current and future life. So, I will go by what happened to me personally. The gangs where I live actually started out with bullying, which I was bullied throughout most of my life, so it really didn't bother me. And that's most likely why they upped it to gang criminal behaviors in order to try to destroy me with their abuse, since their bullying abuse didn't work. What did they start off with? They're saying I'm a lesbian, making fun of my hair, calling me rainbow girl, saying I'm crazy. Well, I actually had a joke for that, because people, I call them shart twatters, engaged in it. I'll tell you one example. Another person outside that gang had come up to me and was acting as though they felt sorry for me, saying, well, my brother and sister are gay. I looked at her, I was like, do you think I'm gay? She goes, well, that's what I've been told. Okay, that's laughable right there. I have a weird sense of humor, so this is what I told her. I said, well, you know what? I said, please keep the gossip going. You can let them know that I have a slightly used penis from eBay, and it's working quite well for me. She looked at me like, huh? And she's like, wow. She goes, you're not gay. I'm like, oh my God. And I just rolled my eyes and walked away. So since that didn't work out for them, they let it go to the criminal level. Criminal level. How did they do that with me? They ended up going to the landlord where I live, giving them a bunch of lies and exaggerations that were obvious. Lies versus truth. Oh my goodness. My story is true. Even before I moved here, I had written a chapter, and it's known as The Lies versus Truth. Which usually wins. Lies. Oh my goodness. So very true. So, what happened then? Well, the landlord obviously enjoys abuse themselves and engaging in it. So even though they were obvious lies, this person engaged in it, which makes them a side gang member. And they did so by giving me an eviction notice warning that was based on false things. Well, they got their little power kick. Of course it affected me negatively. They've done it twice. The second time it was laughable, because based upon legal advice, I was told that they can't evict me based upon the abuse that happened to me, which was actually in the first eviction warning. The second eviction warning, I actually have evidence to prove that false, and actually it is illegal also for landlords to harass their tenants. So, that was laughable. The first time, of course, since it was a re-traumatization of past abuse that I had gone through, it was extremely hard. And that's where I had stated is that it was worse than the previous trauma that happened to me, which was what started them to become a gang and gave them the tool to do so, which was I was sexually assaulted. So, gang. How did that affect me? That dealt with my home, my safety, because they started spreading lies about me to other tenants who ended up getting involved and then engaging in the abuse against me. It became to the point where I was afraid to even come outside my apartment. I was afraid that I would lose my home. I was afraid of being here. I was afraid that due to all that stress and mental anguish and emotional issues I went through, it would affect my job. And it indeed did affect my job, which affects the financial well-being of that person. So, current and future. Future, if I got evicted and that's on my record, just like making false accusations about people and getting them in jail, and they have a record based on something that's not true. Not any different what these people, gang members, I'll say, did to me. They made false accusations, and I myself, personally, forgive or not forgive. That goes to the cultural beliefs, is that we should forgive everybody in order to move on. I'll be getting to that topic another time. We'll stick to this topic. So, gangs, yes, they did in fact affect me financially as well, because I ended up having so much anxiety that I actually got physically sick, and I ended up not having the energy due to all that stress to do full-time work anymore. So I did end up going to part-time, which did affect me financially. Also, I had missed days of work due to being physically sick due to the mental abuse and the problems it caused me. I ended up having, I had PTSD, now I have complex PTSD due to the gang members here and what they have done to me. So, understanding the difference between gangs and bullying is very important. What's an example of how it can affect a victim negatively if you don't understand that? It goes back to the, just ignore them. They'll give up, they'll find somebody else. Why are you letting it bother you? Wow, it's not in my control what they're doing to me, especially when most people believe lies, and also others are alcoholics, as I call them, are addicted to abuse, will engage in that abuse. And how can I stop that from happening, that I get an eviction warning? Do I have control over that person from doing the abuse on me? No. It can actually affect me and harm me, make me lose my home, even my job, any of that. So that's out of my control. That's not something I should just ignore. I need to defend myself, and that's exactly what I've been doing. I actually have a ton of evidence to prove what these people have done to me and to prove their lies untrue. So that is important to understand the difference. Gangs and bullying. When you tell somebody, well, just get over it, just ignore it, what's going to happen? That abuse is going to continue, and it's going to get worse, and it can cause more damage. So it's not something simple where it's temporary with, like in the schoolyard, or just walking down the street and a stranger yells out to you, hey fatty, and then walk home and never have to see them again. I actually have to see these people and run into them because they live in the same apartment complex as me. So it's not something I can just ignore and they'll just go away. Because gangs also are persistent, and they choose a target that they're going to continue going after until they actually destroy that person. Even with legal ramifications that are a possibility. When I did get them warnings, they still continued even after getting a warning from the deputy on my case. So think about that next time when speaking to a victim, before coming back with phrases such as, well, just ignore it. Why you let them bother you? They're just jealous of you. They'll go away. Think hard, because all that does is make the victim feel like they're to blame for it happening to them, that they shouldn't be defending themselves. That's something we need to reteach. We should defend ourselves because we need to in order to keep ourselves safe. We want the truth out there. We need the truth out there. And that's what I'm fighting for, is understanding that domestic violence culture, such as that's a part of it, is that victims should defend themselves, and that's what we should be teaching. Not just walk away, they'll go away, just ignore it, the walk away method. That's up to the victim and the situation as to what will best work for who? Them. Not you, them. Understanding that too is a part of domestic violence culture. Just because your way worked for you in a situation doesn't mean it will work for them. So, again, gangs and bullying. Big difference. Understand the difference in how it can affect somebody's life in negative ways, and how you come across when speaking to a victim based upon what is happening to them. Listen. That's what empathy involves. That's what we're taught in the mental health field, and I understand it so much better myself, that listening is so important instead of just giving advice. Listening and helping that victim come to what they feel will work for them. That's a part of the mental health field that is actually correct in this situation, is listening and letting them come to what they should do. So, that's it for now on this part for bullying versus gangs. Know the difference. Yes, it's very important. Next up is why. One thing I learned in the mental health field, especially in the class of sexual assault and how to give therapy properly, the first thing we learned was the big no-no word. What is that big no-no word? Why? I honestly can say I didn't understand it. And believe it or not, I myself was sexually assaulted before I took this class. I didn't understand why. Why such a bad word is a big no-no. I changed rape culture into domestic violence culture for a reason. Why is that? Because actually rape culture applies to all types of abuse. Absolutely true. What a sexual assault victim goes through, another person of a different type of abuse can go through similar things as the other. That's why I also teach is abuse, period. Doesn't matter by who it happened, by what happened, the situation all depends on the victim and how they respond to it. Nobody can sit there and say, well, the rape was awful, I'm sure, and disregard the other things that happened. So, what happened to me? Everybody disregarded the fact that I was given a false eviction warning twice now, and also being stalked and harassed by more than 7 people. Yes. Everybody focused on the sexual assault, when actually that was nothing to me compared to the others. Now, let's get back to the why. Why such a bad word within domestic violence culture? Instead of rape culture, it's domestic violence culture. The word why is so naughty because, I'll give an example. It's naughty because it is blaming the victim for why the abuse is happening to them. How did that happen? To me, personally, several times. Even by victims themselves. Yes, I'm calling out everybody, including victims of abuse. We would think that they themselves would know the no-nos, but that is absolutely incorrect. Several times, almost every single person that heard my story when expressing myself to them, they would ask me things such as, why are they doing that to you? Let's analyze this and see why they are doing this to you. As though I did something to cause the abuse to happen to me. And that's absolutely untrue. What is that doing? That is victim blaming. That's blaming me for why I'm getting abused. Also, asking why, that's implying that the victim themselves is the abuser. I don't know why somebody chooses to abuse me. I'm not in their head. That can also lead to excuses. Excuses. That's what we learned about in the mental health field too. in regards to rape culture. And again, I'm changing it to domestic violence culture. I'll give an example of what I learned in my mental health classes. We learned about how sexual offenders, when they go to court, one way that is very popular for them to get rid of their punishment easily is going up to the judge. Well, Your Honor, I have a mental illness. Wah, wah, wah. Oh, you poor thing. Well, you know what? I'll just put you on probation and, yeah, just go. That happens very often with all types of abuse. What's another common excuse? We've also learned this in the mental health field. This is where I'm calling them out. Well, they were abused as a child themselves. They were sexually assaulted, they were physically abused, mentally abused. It's like they can't help it. They're repeating the pattern. That's what they were taught. Wow. That's an insult. First one was discrimination against special needs, because I myself have a mental illness and I don't use that as an excuse when I do things that are harmful to others. I take responsibility for my behaviors. The second one, that's insulting all victims of abuse. I myself was abused most of my life, but you know what? I choose not to abuse others. I see it as wrong. We as humans know right from wrong. We know that it's not right to harm other people who don't deserve it. Innocent people. It's a choice. So when talking to a victim, it's extremely important how you phrase your words to them. Your sentences, I should say. Why are they doing that to you? Also, another common thing to say is, I would have. Let's give an example of the I would have. An example would be a intimate partnership. That's one of the most common. This is something even I'm guilty of. When we think of domestic violence as an intimate partnership and somebody's getting physically assaulted, I would have kicked their butt and boom, boom, boom. They wouldn't mess with me like that. I would walk away and leave them in a heartbeat. Very common. I myself am guilty of that. So, is that actually true? I will tell people straight up, not true at all. You don't know unless you're that victim in that situation. That's where empathy comes into play. Empathy requires you to be in another person's shoes. That doesn't mean that you're actually in their shoes, though. It's a very complicated word to understand. Empathy requires you to have understanding based upon their personal feelings about it, not how you had responded in the past or how you think you would respond. Believe it or not, since I was sexually assaulted more than twice, I have to say that I myself responded differently in all three situations when I was raped. Very true. The third time was especially different because the person who had sexually assaulted me was actually the first person that I had ever felt the feeling of love with. So, I'll be honest, I gave them another chance. I put the rape behind. I was able to forgive that. But the thing I couldn't forgive was the fact that they engaged in abuse against me and also caused me humiliation trauma. This person that I first felt love with ended up rejoining the gangs in their goal to destroy me, including leaving me for another woman who is a part of that gang, who is the main person involved in trying to get me falsely evicted from my home. So that was extremely hard. Oh, I got a dry throat today. So, basing your own feelings or your own responses from what you've done in the past or what you think you would do, that's a big no-no. Don't tell a victim, I would have done this. That's making them feel what? It's pushing onto them that they're stupid and it's their fault. Again, victim blaming and shaming all in one right there. It's shaming them and it's blaming them for why the abuse happened to them. So the I would have, exit out. Another one is you should have. What's another popular? That goes along with I'll use the walkaway method. Many people, including victims, will say, you should have walked away. It's, you're causing them to do it. You're making it continue. Whoa! That happened to me several times. I teach self-defense, and I also teach that it's the victim's choice how they deal with it that will help them personally the most. Your choice. If you want to walk away or if you want to fight back, that is the victim's choice, and I strongly stand by that. Why? I use the word why. I'm bad. Why? This is the good way of putting it, is why. That's when it's a good word. Why? Because many times the advice, opinion, not a fact, of what people thought I should have done was actually false. Because I actually did do what they said I should have done. And actually things got worse. The abuse got worse and it caused me more problems. I stopped listening to others' opinion and did it my way, which actually did help a lot more. So you should have, I would have. Stop victim blaming and shaming them. Stop making excuses for the abuse that is happening to the victim. Stop asking the victim why the abuse is happening to them as though they are the cause to it. Why? Exit out. I can't say it enough. It is the one thing that I struggled with understanding until I personally experienced it myself. And again, I'm pointing this out to everybody, including victims of abuse, because I've encountered many who have stated those three things that I just went over several times to me. And they themselves should put themselves into my shoes and think about how they would feel when they were asked those questions, or if they were going to be, if they didn't experience that themselves. So, another thing within domestic violence culture is how we respond to victims based upon listening, empathy, understanding. Empathy, that's one of the hardest to understand. I myself am guilty of that. It's extremely hard, but I finally understand it much better than when I was actually taking the classes for mental health. Believe it or not, I struggled with it deeply because I myself was flawed. But now that I went through this experience, these experiences of trauma, I actually understand a lot of what I've been teaching so much better myself. Of course, I don't like that I experienced it, but I really do hope that it helps others understand it and also helps change our society for the better. So that's it for the why. Exit out. You should have. Exit out. I would have done this, blah, blah, blah. Exit out. We'll continue after this. Next up, I'm going to be discussing domestic violence culture and how it relates to what I now call sloppy, hypocritical ageism. This is also going to tie along with who the abuse had happened by and why those both are a part of domestic violence culture. I'll explain the sloppy, hypocritical ageism as I've been teaching it. And it actually applies to my recent experiences that were traumatic to me. And this is after I had come up with this term for domestic violence culture as I'm reteaching it. Sloppy, hypocritical ageism is when people say, example, when an adult maybe says, God, they're so fat and ugly. The response to that, God, they're so immature. How can they be so immature? Wow, that's insulting children in my eyes, because I know many children that are a lot more respectful than many adults out there. Has nothing to do with age. Just like abuse, I teach it as it's a choice. Nobody has a gun to your head making you abuse others. Our brains aren't defective. That's just a theory, an excuse for people who choose to abuse. Has nothing to do with age. That is absolutely untrue. That's just a myth. Also, a cultural belief that we are raised by. Respect your elders. See, we actually teach this properly in the mental health field, is with children in abuse, is respect your elders. Should children respect all elders? No, we teach about stranger danger, how adults can actually be bad. So why are we using that as an excuse for adults, though? We teach children that they shouldn't trust all adults, that not all adults are good. Yet, we are telling that to adults, that all adults that are older than you or of a certain age means they are maturely respectful based on their age. Wow. That's something that needs to change. Big time. That's a huge flaw. So how did that apply to my recent personal experiences with gangs? The gangs that are after me still are of the age level that most would say that. What? People in their 60s and above are doing this stuff? What? I can't believe that. Oh, let's stop right there. What is that doing to the victim? That is telling them, I don't believe you. That's impossible that somebody of that age, they're too mature to do something like that. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. That is something that we teach in the mental health field, is believing the victim. There are ways that we could see that they're lying, and we're taught about that too, but somebody that's opening up to you based upon abuse that happened to them and reverting to the, I can't believe that. That's where sloppy, hypocritical ageism is a part of domestic violence culture. That happened every single time with every single person I opened up to about the gang abuse that happened to me while living here. Very true. And it was extremely frustrating, and it didn't help me any. If anything, it caused me more problems, because people were acting as though they couldn't believe that this was happening to me based upon these people's age. I also got this several times from many people, is their reason for why they're abusing me is because, let's see, one person said, well, you're the prettiest one here. You're young, you're attractive, you have a life. Unlike them, they're jealous. That's an excuse. Wow. So I actually came to the point of, after hearing that several times, I said, God, I wish I was ugly. I'm serious. I really thought that to myself. Because that was the only reason that these people could come up with, is that because I'm pretty and I'm younger. Wow. Okay. That's an excuse right there. Or they don't have a life. They're bored. Well, you know what? There's times that I'm bored and I didn't have a life. Even now, I don't have a job right now, a steady one, but That doesn't give me reasons to want to abuse somebody. It's a choice. So sloppy, hypocritical ageism, what else can that apply to, is who the abuse happens from. One thing that I've learned throughout this experience in my past is that most people see domestic violence culture, not culture I should say, that's my term, domestic violence as in intimate partnerships. We mainly focus on that as though that's the only way domestic violence happens. Very untrue. Domestic violence can happen in any type of relationship, whether it's a stranger, an acquaintance, a friend, an intimate partner, a family member, a spouse, anybody. So again, it comes back to, people will think, well, it was just a friend that abused them. It shouldn't hurt that much, just get rid of them. Move on. Don't think about it. Wow. That is something I'm teaching about within domestic violence culture, is very harmful to the victim, is basing your opinion based upon who's doing the abuse as to how they should get over that situation and handle it emotionally, as though their emotions shouldn't even be there. We're human. We have emotions. Sure. Let's take friendship, for example. There was one person that was a friend that was abusive towards me, and I've had other friends that were abusive to me that did certain things that this person did. What's the difference? That's where I had gone over in my YouTube, is that your thoughts and feelings, your feelings can override your thoughts. And it's very true, because the one friend was the most significant person I had ever seen in my whole life. I actually thought they would be a friend forever, almost like the sister I never had. So, many people were like, just get rid of her. She's not a friend. People warned me that she's a part of the gang. I couldn't believe it. My heart couldn't let me. I couldn't believe it. But they were absolutely correct in the end, and I had to come to that. Luckily, by that time, I had already lost trust for this person, and I was able to just use the I don't give an F theory into that, because it really didn't affect me after the last incident. So anyways, friendships, yes, that can actually hurt worse than an intimate partnership. And actually, I can be proof of that, because the other person that was involved, that was a significant person in this abuse that happened to me, that harmed me the most, was the person that I first felt the feeling of love with. But believe it or not, I had the most trouble getting rid of, or letting go of, the relationship that was a friendship in this situation. Yes, very true. The intimate partnership, most people think that would have been the one I struggled the most with to get them out of my life and letting go. Very untrue. As I've discussed in the previous videos, is that it's up to the victim. Empathy. You may not understand it. You may say to yourself, again, you should have. I would have. You don't know until you're in that situation. I'm guilty of that myself. If I was in somebody else's shoes looking at myself, I would have been saying the same thing. A friend? Who cares? That's right. That's a part of domestic violence culture that needs to change. Very badly. It is very bad for the victim, because it puts down their feelings. It's shaming them for having those feelings. It's blaming them for having those feelings. Another thing that I encountered with that was people said, I told you to get rid of her. I told you she wasn't your friend. I blame you for this happening. Wow. I was actually blamed for continuing that friendship that was abusive and toxic, for why everything else happened. Very untrue. It's not my fault that that friend chose to engage in the abuse against me, that they were actually a part of it the entire time. My feelings were real. Just like I have stated to others that even though my intimate partnership, and it was the first person I had feelings of love for, I don't regret that relationship. I don't blame myself for it. My feelings were real, even though theirs weren't. So I have no regrets. It happened, and it's ended. But those feelings of mine were real. You can't be in somebody else's shoes and actually understand exactly what they're feeling and why they do certain things. You yourself may think you would know what you're going to do, but you don't. Because I myself am guilty of that, and placing judgment on people and stating that I would have done this. It's very untrue. That's where your feelings override your thoughts. Unfortunately, we are human and we do have feelings. And I've thought many times and wished is that I could just take those feelings and go, pfft. Well, I've tried doing that before and I've done it. And that's where I discussed how all those feelings are going to go into the back of your head and just stay there. And believe me, when they come out eventually, because they're not going anywhere, they're feelings, it's going to be so much harder to deal with. And I've dealt with that before. So I'm actually glad that I didn't take those opinions and actually believe it when they told me, just get over it. I actually, myself, did try to get over it and just try to jump past those feelings. It didn't work. And actually somebody did point that out to me, that I needed to go through the grievance process and stop trying to jump over it. Because I actually never went through the grievance process until these incidents with those two people that were most significant in my whole life out of everybody else. And it was something I honestly have to say was the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with emotionally. And I never want to go back to it. That's for sure. Even though I know there's a good chance you never know. Just like you never know unless you are that victim and had to go through it yourself. So, the two that I just described do relate. Sloppy, hypocritical ageism. Because of their age, it has nothing to do with immaturity. You choose to abuse, and it doesn't matter what age you are. Those people most likely abused people their whole lives before they were that age. That's who they are as a person. That's who they choose to be as a person. As for who it happens by, what type of relationship, that's up to the victim as to how it affects them, how they responded to it. Their feelings, not your feelings, their feelings. That's what needs to be focused on. As in empathy, again, is understanding that you yourself don't know how you would react if you were in their shoes. Just like I had stated, is that I responded differently to the rapes that happened to me. 3 different ones. Is the same that applies to this. You don't know how you will respond to a situation. Just like the freeze, reaction, run, you don't know how you will respond in a dramatic situation when it's happening to you. Whether you'll freeze, you'll fight back, or you'll run. You don't know. Your body has a natural response to that. You hope that you will do what you think will be the best way to handle it so that you don't get harmed as much, but that's not true. We're human. How we respond and how we feel is just natural. So think about that the next time you encounter a victim of abuse. Understand that your opinion or what you think you would do or how you've responded in the past, that's you, not them. Let the victim decide. Okay, so far I've been going over what people say to victims that actually causes more problems and makes it much harder for them to heal from the traumas that happened to them. So this is where I'm going to get into the mental health field and one of the flaws that they make. Yes, law enforcement, you're not the only ones that I criticize. This is proof. my personal story is based upon the mental health field as well. Empathy. Where is a flaw in the mental health field? Okay, there are many mental health therapies out there. Everybody has an opinion as to which one is the best and which one they think will work in all areas for their clients. Wow. There we go again, right back to what I just taught about. Is up to the victim what will work best for them and how they'll best deal with it and heal from the traumas that happened to them. Heal. Ooh, that's another one. Many people are flawed by the notion that healing means that you'll just totally get over it. PTSD means that it'll affect you in certain ways throughout your life. Maybe some people will get over it to where it doesn't affect them anymore and that PTSD does fade away. But it all depends on that person and how they responded to it, that trauma itself. You can't say yourself what will happen to you if a trauma happens. Whether you'll completely heal or if there's going to be certain things that it affected you with. One of the traumas that stayed with me, that affected me, even though I'm basically over the incident itself, is that my anxiety of being indoors for too long or in certain tight spaces. One example would be this bedroom here. When I first moved in, I didn't sleep in the bedroom that had all walls. I liked this bedroom because of the opening, as you see, my kitchen. It was more open, so I actually felt more comfortable being in this room sleeping. It took me a while before I was able to sleep in the bedroom with all walls. Yes, that's how the trauma from beforehand affected me when I moved in here. So, back to what I was saying as to how the mental health field is flawed as well. Their therapies that they come up with is what? An opinion. Just like others out there. Many people think that the mental health field is some kind of magical thing that helps victims heal, that it's a magical solution. Well, that's a huge problem too within our society, as in domestic violence culture. Selfish people. Are people naturally selfish? I really don't believe that. I think that is a choice as well. How we respond to victims. One common thing that many people who are, or I should say choose to be selfish, will say to somebody who is opening up to them. They'll say, well, did you get help for it? Did you see a mental health professional? Wow. There we go. The magical healing process. I have a mental health degree and I know I don't have the ability like magic to heal somebody. Holy cow. What an excuse. That's all I have to say. Not any different than another excuse that I've heard many times. Oh, I don't want to get in the middle of it. Whoa! That is victim blaming right there. And shaming. They're blaming the victim for the abuse when they say that. In the middle of it, that means that both parties are wrong. When you say that, that means the victim and the offender are both wrong. Is the victim wrong? Absolutely not. I'm not wrong for the abuse that happened to me. I had nothing to do to cause that abuse to happen to me. So that's what a person who chooses to be selfish will say. They'll also say what I stated in past videos before this one is, well, just get over it. That's another way of sneakily being selfish, is to saying you care, but you really don't want to hear about it and don't care. So, how people respond, even the mental health field is flawed with that. One problem that I encountered throughout my whole life is that the mental health field, many people in that profession try to get the victim to change. Or they don't even spot the actual problem and blame the victim for the problems that are actually happening. One thing we learned in the mental health field is to learn how to spot abuse. That's where relationships, the types that you're in, as to whether or not they'll actually look for that abuse. Many mental health professionals are flawed, such as family members. That again goes back to another video where it comes to relationships. Many people judged me for giving second chances to the intimate partnership I was in and the friendship. What about family? So their reasoning for that is, well, they're your family, so you can forgive them. Ooh! No. It's my choice to forgive, not theirs. Period. So, the mental health field, they have this in their head, many of them, that certain therapies they learned are actually the all-in-one solution for all problems. No offense to my favorite teacher, Dr. Dyer. His was CBT, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy. But then again, I guess you could think that considering the types of jobs he had, that's probably where it's most likely going to work, such as with sexual offenders, is based upon more about changing yourself. With a victim, they don't need to change anything. They are who they are. They didn't do anything wrong that they need to change something about themselves. That's also stating that they shouldn't be feeling. We're human. We have feelings. We're supposed to have feelings. It's natural. Almost like that can be related to, big boys don't cry. We teach that, yet it's hypocritical, as I just proven, is that boys should cry. It's healthy to cry. You need to cry. But there we are. We're hypocritical. We're trying to make victims change and just excuse the abuse. Making excuses for the abusers. Teaching the victim to just accept and tolerate the abuse. Again, the walk away method. Just ignore it. Just walk away. It'll go away. Believe me. I tried that with the gang members here, and it didn't work at all. So, my therapy that I came up with, creative, inspirational realization. CAR. That's how it's closest to care. Caring requires empathy. And empathy means that you're not going to know how that person feels and what will actually best work for them. They need to come up with that themselves. See, that's where the mental health field says one thing and then the opposite another time. One thing they do teach is that it's the client who does the work in order to heal. We could give suggestions and try to be there to listen, but it's actually the client's accomplishment of reaching that goal. We don't do it. We're not some magical entity that can make people feel better. Ooh, they're crying, they're feeling hurt, they're depressed. Boom, boom, boom. You're healed. I'm a mental health, professional. I can heal you. Boom, boom, boom. That's really hilarious, but that's a part of domestic violence culture. Is we, as a culture, believe that mental health therapy is the all-in-all solution and magical healing process. I teach against that in my therapy, and I mainly focus on the client as to being the one who is the one that will accomplish that goal, as to how it will help them the most, what type of therapy, what they can do in order to get to where they can deal with that problem and heal successfully and be able to have a lifestyle that doesn't hold them back and hold them back from continuing having a happy and good lifestyle. So CAR, creative, inspirational realization. I got that based upon being online on Facebook with a bullying cult clan that was attacking me and a friend that I had met during that process. That was actually an inspiration to me with my last abuse situation. as to what I wanted to do when I got out and how I'd make my life better and what I wanted in my life. So there was many things that that person taught me. Even though we're not friends anymore, it's still a significant part of my life. Just like people will say, forget about them. Well, just like the recent incidents that involved the two people that were the most significant and special people to me in my whole entire life, even over that one friend from online, I still can remember the good times. I'm always going to remember the certain things about them that really gave me good feelings. Even though I accept that they are not that person. They have to change, not me. Exactly. I'm not the one who's wrong. I didn't do any wrong in that relationship. I did the best I could to be a good, kind, caring, loyal, and honest person in those relationships. So, that is a huge problem within mental health field because they focus on the client changing. Changes need to be done when the behaviors are harmful to others. Those are the people that need to change, not the victim. And that's what my therapy that I actually invented and I came up with and I wrote about. I actually have a personal story going that could be published right now. It's that long, but I hope to include the experiences that happened to me here after getting out of that situation of abuse. And I hope that my personal story actually helps others and also helps not only the mental health field, but law enforcement make the changes that are necessary. Like I said before, I don't expect it to happen instantly, not even in my lifetime, but I hope that this becomes more public and that it can actually make changes possible to happen within the future. So, I hope everybody gets to see my personal story. Someday it'll come out there. People wanted me to do it for many, many years. Since, I'd say, my 20s, I started writing, and people enjoyed my writing style and everything else. So, hopefully it will be out there when I get to it. So, creative, inspirational realization. The client is the one who achieves that goal of getting to where they need to be in their life in order to have a life that's worth living and be happy about their life. Next up, why didn't you report it? Why didn't you tell someone? Wow. That's a long story there. I never understood it either. I always just assumed that law enforcement would be really on top of it and really be by the victim's side and really try to help them. Okay, why didn't I tell someone when I was younger? It was very shameful that I was raped because of my own personal morals about sex, and I did blame myself. But I also did tell someone, but that family member ended up doing something that they should have been in trouble with the law for because I was a minor. I was actually drugged and raped when I was 15 years old. After that, I was raped again when I was 16 by my 25-year-old boyfriend. I had stated previously is that those two rapes were completely different from the third one. And they were. They were all different from each other. The first one was very traumatic to me. It was actually the most traumatic one out of the two. But now I have to say is that the third one was actually the most traumatic. And why is that? I actually do regret reporting it. I'll be plain honest and straightforward. I regret reporting being raped. It was the first time I reported it. My first rape, I didn't even tell my best friend about. Second rape, same thing. I didn't report it to the police. I'll give an example, a story of that happened to me when I was still young. I was 18, and there was a police office that was in the mall that I used to ride my bike to. And I gotten to know the deputies in there, and they got to know me. it came to the point where I did start opening up about certain things in my life, and I think they kind of were leaning towards that something happened to me that was criminal, which was me being raped. So, how did I respond? I remember them just staring at me, telling me, "You can tell us, we'll help you." I just like froze. My gut instinct was so strong, and I still remember it to this day. I literally ran out of that office and through the mall and out. I don't know why, but now I do know why. Because of what happened to me after I reported the third time I was raped by my intimate partner that I was with at the time. So, what happened? Did I have sexual relationships with him? Relations, I should say, as an intercourse? No, I didn't have intercourse with him before that happened. Anyways, what happened is that I did tell my friend that was a significant part of my life right after it happened. Honestly, I thought to myself, I'm going to do it different. You know why? It's because I was shamed and blamed by several people when I told them that I didn't report it for the past 2 rapes, and that was many years ago that happened. People always said, well, you're the problem. You should have reported it so they can't do it again. You would have gotten justice. Da-da-da-da. Putting me down because I didn't report it. Well, now I'm going to explain why. I'm glad I didn't report it. I really am. I was in a bad time in my life, and I was dealing with a lot of things that I don't think I would have been able to handle it as well as I did through this. So after I reported it, what happened? There was a person that was spying on me from their window, and they came outside when the deputy came to take the report, and he knew why the deputy was there. Anyways, this person, I was supposedly my friend, ended up getting mad at me because he actually owed me money as he had promised, and he was a drug addict. He ended up getting mad at me for being upset with him for not paying me the money he promised me. Anyways, he ended up going to the gang members that live here and telling them that I reported my ex for raping me. So that's how it got around. I honestly didn't want anybody to know about that, especially the people here. The only person I thought I could trust was that one significant friend of mine that I'd have to say didn't respond any better than my sister did. Probably even worse than what my sister did to me. Because that person did exactly what my ex, who was the first person I felt love with, did, which was they were engaging in gang abuse against me. And that all piled up big time after finding out that I reported being raped. So that's how all that happened. As for the abuse that happened afterwards, I was attacked and still am being attacked for reporting that. And also, I was actually physically assaulted by another gang member less than a week after being raped. I was raped August 15th, 2023, and then I was physically assaulted by another gang member August 21st, 2023. That was all planned. And even after that, that's when the false eviction warning came to my door. That was due to my ex getting back with one of the gang members as his girlfriend, and her sister and their friend ended up going around getting tenants to sign a petition making up lies about me, stating that they actually witnessed it. I actually have evidence to most of those lies not being true, as with the new false eviction warning that I recently got for, again, reporting somebody, and that person had a warrant put in for their arrest due to the previous incidents that happened, which was gang related, and being attacked for reporting that person for sexually assaulting me. So, when I got physically assaulted, who was the first person I told? That one significant friend. And again, they didn't handle it the way they should have. They acted like they cared. But during the time they knew I was being attacked by gangs, they didn't do anything such as report it to the police that I'm being attacked. They didn't even have the decency to at least write a letter to the management, the landlords of this apartment complex, letting them know that I'm not doing anything wrong and that I'm being ganged up on and that they're lies, knowing that and telling me that. Their excuse was, well, I don't want to get attacked by them too. I'm too afraid. I hope you'll still be my friend. Not any different than what I said in the previous, is just choosing to be self-centered. So, after that, they started stalking and harassing me. More people. I was already getting stalked and harassed by my ex's female friend, and then the person who physically assaulted me, and it just kept on adding up. To the end where I was actually getting stalked by my ex. That was due to me reporting others, so what do the gang members do? They get somebody else to do the dirty work. As I described in my personal story, is how it works with being the cult leader assistant, is the cult leader doesn't want their bad side to be shown to anybody. They want to keep their reputation as though their lies and their abuse isn't happening. And that's exactly how this proceeded. They kept on handing it down to somebody else to do the dirty work. Just like the cult leader assistant takes over the dirty work of the cult leader to save face of that cult leader in that clan. They are a gang because they did criminal things such as stalking and harassing me, which caused me great deep mental health, physical, and financial issues within my life. It got so great that I was afraid to come outside my apartment, even outside the door, just down the hallway, for over a week. I was working, but I would only go down to my car, and I was still afraid to even do that. I even changed where I parked, where I preferred parking. That was more convenient for me and felt easier due to that. Although one of the gang members looked out for me and realized where I was parking. That shows you right there. I was being stalked and harassed. They would have to look around the parking lot because I parked on the total opposite side of the building. Let's just put it that way. So it led to me being stalked and harassed, and that was extremely hard. I mean, I actually came to the point where I remember sitting and I had a hallucination of image of the person who physically assaulted me when I was just sitting at a restaurant that's in a different city. I also started having hallucinations of the woman, his female friend, and the areas I walked around the apartment complex outside of her face because she stalked and harassed me several times and was spying on me from her window. And also others, including my ex's girlfriend and her sister and their friend, female friend, also did that to me too. They would follow me around. If they see me outside, they come. One time it was where they saw me outside and they ended up meeting outside with the female friend's car and drove around and around and around the building just to mess with me and intimidate me. So many people will look at the rape as though that was the all in all, but actually it was the false eviction warning, because my home here was my miracle. It was my first miracle in my life, and that was having the life that I never thought I possibly could ever have due to my past situation that I was in of abuse. But here I am, and it's almost like it's actually re-traumatization, because the things that happened to me here are what happened to me in my past situation. So I've been re-traumatized. I did have PTSD, but now it's upped to complex PTSD. Plus my anxiety level and panic disorder is worse now too, due to being stalked and harassed several times, and it still happens. Also, the false eviction warning, I was given advice by lawyers and other legal people in the legal profession is I have nothing to worry about. Even people that aren't in that profession saw the eviction warning, was like, wow, what a load of crap. That's going to get laughed out of court. Those are obvious lies. And it's bullshit. You didn't do anything to break the lease. And even somebody who's rented out apartments and owned apartment complexes told me the same thing. Like, what a load of crap. So, yes, even the landlord engaged in the abuse against me and still is. I actually have evidence of that too. Yet they did nothing when I had expressed what was happening to me. They chose to engage in the abuse instead. That was happening to me with those people. So, actually it was the eviction warning, the first one, that really put me to the point where my mental health, physical health went downhill greatly and affected my financial well-being, which was due to me calling in sick from work because I couldn't even sleep that night, having several nightmares. So, as I've stated, is that it's the victim, how they respond to it. You can't just say, well, you were raped. That is so awful. I just proved with my own story is that that's not true. Because the trigger to, or the tool, I should say, of me reporting being raped in that event itself was nothing to me. The rape, nothing. But them getting me falsely, trying to get me falsely evicted from my home, that is what greatly traumatized me. Also, how the people responded that I thought were significant in my life and that were most special out of everybody in my entire life, and how they engaged and enabled the abuse that was happening to me that caused me great harm. So it's because of those two things, not the rape. It was due to the two people involved that were tools of their abuse that they were enabled to do upon me, and the false eviction warning, which actually is against the law. It's considered landlord harassment, as my friend who used to run an apartment and own apartment complexes had advised me about. And also, I didn't do anything to break the lease, which he actually read the lease himself, since he's used to be a landlord himself when he owned apartment complexes, and saw that I didn't do nothing. Another thing that happened recently was with the false eviction warning is that another agency had gotten involved without even hearing what is actually going on. Actually had informed certain people of that agency based upon what has been happening. And actually I have proof based upon the false eviction warning recently that I can prove them wrong right away. It was a postcard. It was a joke based upon farts. I was making a joke about that. It's not even sexually explicit, the postcard itself. And I actually could prove that. And second of all, it doesn't go against the housing authority rules because I actually did get permission from those people. And I actually have evidence of that as well, believe it or not. So, if that gets taken to court, I already have the evidence lined up. And I've already shared it with one of the agencies that was involved. And now they realize that they made a mistake. With that traumatization is, I can't speak to that person who automatically believed the lies and attacked me. That's part of my trauma. Just like I will never be able to forgive certain people for certain things. That's my choice. I can never forgive somebody for making false accusations about me that caused my home or job trouble. Yes, that's the one thing I can't forgive. I can forgive the rape, but I cannot forgive when somebody harms your job or your home. That causes current and future harm. That's no different to me than somebody falsely accusing somebody for murder or sexual assault, and they end up going to jail for it and getting punished for a crime they didn't even commit. I think that's more disgusting than the crime itself. I felt that way before this happened to me, and I still feel that way, and it's happening to me again. Because this has happened to me before in my past life, several times, where I was falsely accused of things and got punished for it. So, again, why didn't I report? Damn, I wish I didn't. That will be in the next video, based upon how did the law enforcement deal with my situation. They didn't help me at all. Not yet, anyways. Maybe they'll actually do something that helps the victim and not the offender. I'm hoping. Now, part 2. Why didn't you report it? Why didn't you tell someone? Okay. I had actually started talking to my best friend that I knew since middle school throughout high school, that I was best friends with during the time that I had experienced being raped, where I was drugged and raped by another classmate that was an acquaintance. So that was when I was 15. We started talking again and reconnected when I was 34. And I finally told her. She was insulted. She actually was sad. She was like, why didn't you tell me? We were best friends. You didn't tell me. Well, I think I'll have the answer to that now. The hardest part after I was raped was due to me telling a friend that I entrusted. At least I thought. As I found out, they were actually a part of the gang in their efforts to destroy me this entire time that we were in a relationship, a friendship. So, the two most significant people in my life that I've had, actually, the biggest trauma that made it so bad was humiliation trauma. So how was that? After I was raped, I had called that one friend. That was the friendship that I had that was significant to me. How did they respond to it after? It was after when the gang started to attack me, stalking, harass me. I got physically assaulted, false eviction warning. How did she respond? She had told me, well, I don't want to be around a rapist, because she didn't want to come up to my apartment if he ever was there, just to be supportive and be there for me. She said that if I call her, she'll call the cops for me. Wow. So I'm in danger and I can't dial, I'll dial her first and have her do it. No, I could call 911 myself, thanks for nothing. So how did she humiliate me? She associated with all the people that were involved in abusing me and trying to destroy me, the gang members, including my ex who had sexually assaulted me. She actually would say hi to him after he said hi just to her, with me right next to her. I'm sorry, but if somebody harmed my friend the way he did me, he wouldn't even get a hi from me, or a smile, or anything. But that's just me. I've been in that situation. And that's not how I would respond. She would actually talk to all these people that have harmed me in good ways, and actually listen to them talk down about me and lie about me and not say really anything. Just be there for it. What does that do? That's what I call a shart twatter. A shart twatter, actually, I see them as the worst. And they're actually the ones that enable abuse to continue. They're the main tool of abuse. Most people think that abusers, it's just them mainly. No. The thing that keeps them going is the shart twatter. That's why my chapter of Truth versus Lies is actually very true. Without the shart twatters, those lies won't get around. It's the shart twatters that enable those lies to be true. My friends, or anybody that knows me, hanging out with these people, knowing what they're doing to me is wrong, and that they're the wrong ones, are saying, yeah, good job, abusing her. I'll take your side. Even though I know you're lying, I'm going to tell everybody that you're not. Even if you're not saying anything, you're still agreeing with everything that they're doing to that person you claim to care about. or you know that person isn't at fault and that they're being harmed. You're enabling them to continue the abuse. Period. That happens in all types of abuse, no matter what type of relationship. Most people don't have the personal integrity to do what's right, no matter who's involved. It also takes courage. And not being a coward. Most people are cowards and very self-centered. People who are cowards are usually, ties along with being very self-centered. They only care about themselves, number one, no matter what. They won't even put in a tiny amount of effort. That's a choice. So, as for why I didn't tell somebody, well, look what happened to me. I ended up getting more abused and more traumatized due to telling people that I entrusted, that one person and one other person, and by the time it was already out, I told other people what happened. But guess what? They also enabled it. They believed lies about me. I've had friends saying that they're my friend, they care about me, they know that I'm not lying. Then the gang members would go over to them, tell them some lie about me, saying I'm doing this to them, get them to hate me. That's exactly what they did. And those friends, foolishly, as my chapter of Truth versus Lies, believed the lies, including that one significant friend of mine. What else happened? I had over 5 friends who ended our friendship. Literally telling me that because of what happened to me, it's stressing them out. That they have to end our relationship and take a break from me. Wow! What happened to me? Exactly. Not them. I actually had people telling me that. So, I ended up dropping the charges because I was being attacked by gangs, and also I didn't have any outside support. That also goes back to my previous video about thinking that the mental health field is some magical entity. That's not true. Outside support is extremely important. And that includes acquaintances, friends, other people on the outside, not involved in agencies and people getting paid. But having outside support is extremely helpful and important. This time I do have it. I do have witnesses to the crimes that happened to me, also knowing me and being willing to tell the truth about it and speak up about it and having the personal integrity to do so. Actually, it was based on only 2 people where I realized that the friendships I had that didn't do that and actually hurt me more and betrayed me and deceived me and traumatized me much more, I realized they're not really friends and they're not worth being in my life and they don't deserve to be in my life. That happened to be one friend who showed me by speaking up about what happened to me, defending me, even calling the people that were going against me, including the landlord and other agencies, telling them she's not at fault and telling them what she saw and what she knows about. The other person happens to be my mother. One of the gang members tried to buddy up with my mom. Even tried to hug her one time. My mom almost fell over when she looked at her. Mothers have great intuition. I always heard about that, but I'll give you an example of that. One time, me and my mom, when she first came to visit me, were walking down the hall, and 2 of the gang members were sitting in the hallway in the lounge area. I was walking in front of my mom. My mom was behind me. She only heard about these people, their names and certain things they did to me, and there happened to be 2 of them right there, the 2 sisters. And when we got to the elevator, inside of it, she goes, "Is that them?" I looked at her, I said, "How'd you know?" She goes, "I could tell by their devious looks and how they were looking at us." I was like, wow. The same thing about that significant friend in my life. Believe it or not, just from the first meeting of her, my mom actually told me, "I think that that friend of yours is involved in the harm that's being caused to you." Again. Well, She was right. So, how did my mom show me that what a good friend should be? When that one person came up behind her to try to give her a hug unexpectedly, and she almost fell backwards just from looking at her, she didn't give her the time of day. I watched her. She wouldn't even look at her. Didn't say nothing. Turned her head away from her. That's exactly what she did. That's exactly how a friend should be. They shouldn't even associate with people that are trying to harm somebody that they care about. They claim to care about, if they care about them. Absolutely true. Having personal integrity. Doing what's right no matter who is involved. Absolutely true. So, why didn't I want to tell people back then? I think I found the answer now. I experienced extreme humiliation trauma, not only by that significant friend, but also the intimate partner who ended up dating the main gang member who was trying to get me evicted from my home and still is. And I actually have evidence of that. And they chose to date that person. I actually told that ex of mine that they humiliated me greatly. Not only did they cheat on me and leave me for another woman that lives in the same apartment complex as me, but that's the same woman who's trying to get me evicted, who has been stalking and harassing me. I told him, I said, I'd rather if you left me for a 10-cent hooker, prostitute. I'm dead serious, and I still mean that to this very day. So, between the intimate partner and what he did in rejoining the gangs and the humiliation trauma of him, including my significant friend, associating with all these people that harm me, and not having the personal integrity to do the right thing, to even defend me in any way whatsoever, that's exactly why I don't really think I would want to tell anybody if I ever got raped again. Honestly, see that as one of the hugest mistakes that I made. Although the rumor spread so quickly that it didn't matter who I told, since that one friend of mine, as I mentioned in the first part, was the one that let the gangs know that I had pressed charges against my ex for raping me. So that's something that is part of domestic violence culture, is how people respond about being selfish and looking down upon victims who don't report. I think this should be a good answer as for the fear that comes along with it and why. Even though I didn't know that this stuff was even possible the first 2 times I was raped, that I really didn't think people would respond in this way and do things this cruel and despicable. Well, that gut instinct, it was very true. People always talk about that gut instinct. Boy, was I right back then when I was 15 and 16, both times. It's not to say a word to any of my friends. Wow. I wish I had that gut instinct this time, but like I said, this person was the most significant friend I had in my entire life, although it turns out that they were never my friend. They were a part of a gang that was trying to harm me and destroy me this entire time. Why didn't you report it? Part 3. Yes, this is very long. Believe me, I didn't think it would be this long, as for reasons why a victim doesn't report being sexually assaulted. Or any other crimes for that matter. So, how did the police handle it? Oh, they came over, they asked me questions. Basically, I already knew what they were going to ask me, what kind of idiotic questions they would ask me that is actually shaming and blaming the victim, because I learned about it in the mental health field. So, that's why it didn't affect me that much. Although, I'm one to be bold and honest that I'm going to point it out. I was actually looking for it. That way, I can speak about it as for my own personal experience to show where the mental health field is correct about law enforcement. So, what kind of questions did they ask me? They asked me if we were sexually intimate before that happened. They asked me if I was wearing any underwear. They asked me how long I knew him before it happened? All kinds of dumb questions. So, were we intimate before? I already stated that was a no, but it shouldn't matter. It's abuse is abuse. No means no. Even if you had sexual relations, you had intercourse with them before. No means no. I myself stand strongly and have strong morals about intercourse. So, for that, no, we didn't have that yet. Why is that? Because I honestly didn't know if my love was true with him. Because previously, before that, his female friend had physically threatened me in front of him, and he didn't do nothing to defend me. That was the first red flag, I should say. And then shortly after that is when he raped me. Honestly, based upon my own personal story, I can say it's very possible that my rape was planned. That him being with me was planned and part of the gang's plan. Who knows? Anything's possible these days. Based on what I've been discussing so far as for what's happened to me, that stands true that anything is possible with people these days and how cruel and despicable they can be. So, what else did the police do that caused more damage to me? Well, they did go and question him. The obvious lie was he said he didn't even know me. They're like, well, we saw you on her Ring camera. Ooh, lied to the police officer. That should be a huge sign right there. Abusers are dumb. That's all I have to say. But again, my chapter of truth versus lies stands true. That most people do believe lies, even if they're that obvious. But abusers make lies that are so obvious, but most people will believe them. Or they say they believe them because what? They just want to go with the bigger crowd because they're self-centered and don't have the personal integrity to do the right thing and stand by the person who's being harmed and shouldn't be. That is where the victim is outnumbered. I was outnumbered by the police too. When I was being stalked and harassed, of course, I called law enforcement. Not all the times that it happened, but certain times I did because it got so bad. It was happening regularly to where it was affecting my everyday life and my ability to live my life in peace. So, certain officers, what was one thing they said? One said I appeared to be in a mental state or something like that. Wow, not any different than my sexual offender saying that we broke up because I'm mental. Wow. And then another things that they've said is that they did show up like 20 minutes after I called. And of course the stalking would subside, not only because they saw the officer coming in, but also they just stopped after 15 minutes. The stalking doesn't happen all day long, but yeah, the times that it does happen, it does affect you negatively, mentally, and it can affect you physically in the end. So, what was another thing? Oh man, I heard this a zillion times. Let's just say, I'm going to put it straight out there, just like I did to the recent cop that came to my place, telling me, well, they're not really stalking and harassing you. Ooh, they don't even know the whole story of what's happened to me. Or, it happened in a common public area. Oh my god. So, as I stated to them before in another presentation, thanks for giving abusers and criminals a place where they can abuse their victims without worrying about getting punished for doing it. Thanks a lot, law enforcement. I'll be nice. Let me just stop there. I had another thought of what I wanted to do, but I won't. I'll contain myself. I have that choice. So, what was another thing? One officer had stated that it appears that they just seem to be exercising. Yeah, they appear to be exercising because they saw you coming in and they stopped the stalking and harassing me. Moron. That's right. I actually have videos of proof, and they're like, oh, some of them picked up on it. Obvious signs even in video. Others, ooh, they don't get the details. Let's just say people have told me I should have been a lawyer and worked as a private investigator, a CIA, a victim's advocate, because I do spot details. I even have to say that again. With victims, I had to point out things that they didn't notice, which to me would be common sense. They noticed things in the video that weren't part of what they should have noticed. I'm good at seeing those details, and I can spot abuse pretty easily and see the lies. One example would be where I used to work. There was a lot of bullying and harassment and discrimination and ganging up on other employees, certain ones they targeted. I actually got fired for certain reasons because I myself was one of those people that was getting ganged up on. Anyways, I still go there. I went to a different location, and I go there once in a while, and there was a big fight between the employees, yelling at this one girl and saying this and that, and I'm looking. Most people would automatically think it was that one employee that they were all yelling at that's actually the problem. Believe me, that's the first thought I had, but then I was like, I'm not going to go by my first instinct based upon what they're trying to fake to make others believe them. I was outside, and I went up to the girl, and, I asked her, what's going on, hey. So she told me what was happening. I myself experienced it, and everything she said was exactly what I myself went through. I was like, wow, you're going through what I already went through with that place. I told her straight up, I said, I'm not going to lie to you. That's where I'm different. Most people will say, well, just get better, just ignore it. I told her straight up, it's not going to change. They're not going to change. It's not going to stop. I'll tell you that right now. Because the management and the owners are involved in promoting that and enabling it and encouraging it and being a part of it. Just like in my situation here, I had friends that were enabling it, encouraging it, and engaging in it. So were the police and law enforcement and also the judges when I tried to get a restraining order 2 different times on the gang member who had spit on me. I've heard other stories from other victims, and they're absolutely correct. It's very hard to get a restraining order. That's another thing. The police officers would say, why don't you just get a restraining order on them? Oh, please. I'm already going through enough mental stress, yet having to go through the court system when I know there's a 99.9% chance they're going to turn it over and say, yeah, whatever, no, you're not getting it. Yeah, that's law enforcement, right? We have all these laws, yet they don't enforce them. As I call Indian River County, it's the internal refugee camp for criminals, IRC. That's right. That's where I see Vero Beach, Indian River County Police Department. I've heard other stories of what people have gone through that are similar to mine and how it's been handled. I used to live in Brevard County, and those sheriffs and those deputies, they really were on top of things and really stood by the victim. But I already knew when I was moving back to Vero, since I lived here for over 10 years previously, I know the flaws that are greatly, deeply bad within the Indian River Sheriff's Department. Police Department. That's very true. I've dealt with them beforehand too when I lived here, and them not helping me in the way that they should. I honestly hope things change. But again, hey guys, I put down the mental health field, and I'm in that profession myself. But at least I can admit the flaws within it, even though I'm in it myself. So let's go on. So the restraining order, that was another thing. I'll just get a restraining order. Another thing, let's go to the next one. Oh, that's just civil. You could take them to court for it, Yeah, I'm going to spend over $300 to take somebody for a crime that's happened to me. They care more about drug crimes, somebody has one joint, they're in jail for 6 months. Yeah, somebody sexually assaults somebody, yeah, whatever. Yeah, that's what we learned in the mental health field. They're absolutely correct. Yeah, somebody sells drugs, little ounce, little tiny amount, they get 10 years in jail. Sexual offender, they go to court, I got a mental illness. Please excuse my behavior. I can't help it. That BS line. That's just one of them. Get out of here. You're free. You poor thing. Yeah, that's exactly how they treat it. Much worse here in Indian River County, the internal refugee camp for criminals. Just like they have their public space areas where they can stalk and harass you. Heck, they can, probably, they spit on you. They can do anything they wanted. So, word to the wise is don't be in any common public areas. The criminals have a right to rape you, beat you up, and anything they want there, based upon the Indian River County Sheriff's Department. Sorry, I have to laugh because that's how disgusting and despicable it is, but it's the dang darn right truth. That's exactly what many of them said. As for it's civil, what are the points of having all these laws if they're not enforced? Absolutely no reason whatsoever. It's crazy. So, that'll go to my significant friend who wants to follow all rules. Don't sit in that chair. Oh, I would never break rules. But they're surely not against rules, but when it comes to things such as stalking and harassing, that's a crime. That's against the rules. Well, obviously they don't care about rules because they watched all those laws being broken happening to somebody they claim to care about. Yet they care about a rule of not being able to park in a certain spot in the parking lot that was saved for a hairstylist that worked here. Ooh. That's laughable too. So yeah, even others, not the law enforcement, are kind of hypocritical as to what they say they do and what they stand for as in their morals. As in these cops that, think they're there for people to defend them against crimes and whatnot. They're actually defending the criminals. I mean, look what happened to me. The last incident that I did something, as in reporting somebody to get this to stop, I did get retaliation. Did I get any protection? I even asked that deputy who was on my case to make sure that I'm protected. That if something does happen, they'll do something to protect me. And they assured me that's what they're going to do. Nope, I got another retaliation, which was another fake, false eviction warning, which I actually have evidence to prove that as being wrong, and those people can actually be in trouble legally for doing that again. But again, I had to do the work. The deputy on my case and the police, they don't even know the laws. One of them tried to pretend they know the laws because they're a cop, whatever, dude. Yeah, that's another flaw in the law enforcement, is stating things that is actually not true. Yeah, there's like the right to work. They can fire you for anything, even if you're wearing lipstick that they don't like. Not true. Actually, one of the laws is, it's against the law in Florida, is bullying, harassment, and discrimination. So actually, they're wrong. Another thing is landlord-tenant rights. There are rights for tenants, but many cops who think they know it all, they'll tell you, well, the landlord could evict you for any reason. No, buddy. I tell them straight up. That's where I'm a different kind of victim. Most people, unlike me, when they're in those situations, I admit it's very hard, mentally straining, and it makes the situation much harder to deal with when you're trying to fight for yourself in order to protect yourself, because you really can't rely on even the law enforcement to do anything right. And that goes along with the mental health field. My achievement and goal for my last situation was on my own. I did a lot of the work that the mental health field should have been doing in order to get what I needed achieved. And successful, I should say. Same goes for now. Law enforcement, did they do the work? No, absolutely not. They did nothing that really helped me. Even though they did give warnings to these gang members, they still went after me afterwards. They stopped, but then they start. That's how they go. They just let it go and they drop the case, but nobody actually gets punished for the crimes. That's where I say that actually the victim gets punished for the crimes that happened to them. And that's actually what happened to me throughout all this. I ended up getting punished. I got the eviction warning. I kept on getting harassed and stalked and all that. So I'm the one that got punished for the crimes that happened to me. As I stated in the previous video, it's not the victim's fault. They shouldn't be blamed or shamed or made to change who they are as a person because they didn't do anything wrong. Period. And the people within the mental health field, yes, as I stated, they have many flaws too, and so does the law enforcement. And based upon my teachings in the mental health field, they were absolutely correct. I guess all those times that we heard them in the next room next to us in the classroom where they were getting taught for being in the law enforcement, being a police officer, and we're just laughing along about them because we know that they don't get trained properly of how to handle a victim and how to talk to them. But they think they do. Not right. Very untrue. They're awful. So next time somebody wants to ask somebody, why didn't you report? Why didn't you tell someone? You could have saved somebody else from it happening. You could have got justice. That's all I have to say. I don't think so. So until anything positive happens out of me going to the law enforcement and actually doing something that's actually going to help me and stop these crimes from continuing happening to me, I have to stand strong as to why I wouldn't report being sexually assaulted or almost any other crime either to the law enforcement, or even telling most people, or anybody for that matter, if something happened to me again, based upon my own personal story and what I've just gone over. There's your answer right there. So think about that next time somebody comes to you and expresses something that's already shameful for them to admit happened to them and is extremely painful and traumatizing. Think about how you respond. Think about what you're saying to them. How would you feel? Not only that, empathy and understanding that you are not them. And just because you think you know what you would do if you were in their situation, I've already explained how that is absolutely not true. And I'm actually an example of why it's not true. Because certain things I've been through before, as I've stated with rape and sexual assault, I responded differently, and it was different for me in every situation. But the one that happened to me here, it wasn't the rape itself, it was the things that happened after, and how friends responded and people I knew, also the law enforcement, is what made this the most traumatic experience altogether, with all the traumatic experiences put together with what happened to me here. The most worst thing I can ever imagine in my whole entire life that's ever happened to me, that affected me both mentally and physically. And they are gangs because they did affect my current and future life based upon the abuse and crimes that they committed on me. So, again, why didn't you report? Why didn't you tell someone? Think about it. My personal story should explain why.